everybody. Welcome to ABA Inside Track, the podcast that's like reading in your car, but safer. I'm your host, Robert Perry Cruz, and with me, as always, is my sweltering co-host.
Hey, it's Diana.
And it's Jackie. We're hot. It's
Yep.
summertime.
It's summertime, and I'm being a pill, and I'm not allowing us to leave the door open while we record.
And our studio.
In our studio. If this was a real studio, it would also be incredibly hot. We'd have that, like,
It's true.
eggshell stuff on the wall, and I'm sure really sucks in heat, too.
Yeah.
That's what I imagine it sounds like if you got real close up to it.
You could also record, like, you could wear less clothing, because, like, who's here? Nobody. It's not one of those open-air studios.
I like to wear my parka when we record, Rob.
Oh, okay, sorry. But anyway, this isn't a podcast about how to record a podcast, because you're listening to the wrong podcast if that's what you want to know. No, this is a podcast about behavior analysis and behavior analytic research. Every week here at ABA Inside Track, we pick a new topic, and we find some exciting articles to share with our listeners and discuss them in some detail. This week is no exception, and we'll be talking about a very exciting topic, pets!
Puppies!
Puppies specifically are dogs to those of you who just want to call them dogs instead of puppies. So we are reading articles about puppies and dog training and dog behavior as well. If you caught our preview episode, we talked a little bit about, our previous history with, personal history, I should say, with dogs and some other, animal dog research that we've either read or seen in the past. Jackie, did you look up the dog who loved too much? Or was I supposed to send you a link for that?
You were supposed to send me a link to it, but I will also look it up.
Okay.
I was real busy this weekend being lazy.
Okay. Yes, but that's one of the, I think, good books on dog mental health issues, I guess it would be considered. We're not talking so much about that today, but we are talking about dog behavior with two fun articles. And let me tell you what they are. The first article we'll be discussing is Training Shelter Volunteers to Teach Dog Compliance by Howard and DiGennaro Reed from the Journal of Applied Behavior Analysis, 2014. And then we'll be talking about Application of Functional Analysis Methods to Assess Human-Dog Interactions by Feuerbacher and Wynne, also from the Journal of Applied Behavior Analysis from 2016.
Oh my gosh, we did it in chronological order without even meaning to.
I know, that wasn't the intention, but hey,
Love
it
it.
happens sometimes. We've all owned dogs, but only, Jackie, you've trained your dog, you've done a lot of dog training and dog classes.
I have gone to a lot of dog classes. I've read a lot of dog training books.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my dogs is well trained.
One of two.
50% success rate.
That's right.
And then my other dog is well behaved 75% of the time.
Okay, so you combine that together, and that's like 62.
Right? I'm almost there.
Yeah.
Good math, quick math. Wow.
I don't know if I did that right.
Doesn't matter.
Thanks.
And Diana, you...
And that's like a D-.
Yeah, so
Ooh, there you
already
go.
passing, kind of.
And Diana, you have had dogs, but not done a lot of dog training, right?
My dogs were super smart. They were just genius dogs, and they seemed to learn everything they needed to know on their own. And that's what drew me to be a behavior analyst. It's just so easy.
Cool. That's good. Well, then...
No, we had these cute little rat terriers, and they are really smart dogs. They
Yeah.
have a great receptive vocabulary, and they learn tricks really quick.
Good.
Yeah.
And I, one time, volunteered in a shelter many years ago for a college project.
And you've had a lot of dogs in your life.
I don't think I trained any of them particularly well. That was my mom's things. They were always my mom's dogs. Yeah, Diana, you're giving a face because we were in the house with those dogs today, and they
Our dogs.
they are very dog-like, and my children
There's some
are
doggy
scared
woggy
of them.
doggies.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, this is actually dog training is a pretty significant issue because there's a lot of dogs out there. There's a lot of dogs
I know.
in this
I've
world.
seen Lady and the Tramp.
Yeah, there's a lot of...
There are dogs all over the
And
place.
that was the 50s. All right, it's been a long time
Right?
since that movie came
Yep.
out.
Do humans select dogs that look like them? Or do the humans grow to look like their dogs? Or do the dogs grow to look like their humans?
I think it's that way.
Which
I think
one?
I don't think they pick dogs that look like them, but I think they morph into one another, just like old married couples do sometimes.
It's weird when that happens.
It is, but it happens.
It does.
And it's so weird. But most people do not pick dogs that look like them initially. Otherwise,
Okay.
I'd have an Irish setter.
You would.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I actually kind of want one. Or a golden retriever, which I also really want, but my husband said no. So most dogs that are in shelters are there for a reason. right? So either they have had some significant behavior problems that owners have returned them to the shelter. Maybe they're too rambunctious. Everybody gets the puppy for Christmas, and then when the puppy is 1 year old and it's a terror, nobody wants to deal with it. Or I had a friend once that got a puppy for a Valentine's Day gift, and then 3 weeks later, the puppy ripped the entire wall down in the bathroom.
Oh, wow.
It was amazing. They took a picture
of the wallpaper or the drywall?
The drywall.
Wow.
So the whole, whatever the puppy could reach, they left him in the bathroom thinking that was, the safe place.
Yeah.
The puppy destroyed. So this happens. And, when you're adopting a dog, they let you know that this is going to happen.
Yeah. Our dog dug up the whole backyard. Not the cute dog, not the cute terrier, the previous dog.
Yeah.
And the cable kept going out, and that was because he would bite through the cable wires.
Oh, that's bad.
Yeah.
And he probably got a little shocked too. My dog once.
It did not stop him.
I know, it's amazing.
Not a deterrent.
My dog once ate the cord to my phone, and he's never eaten a cord again, so he probably got a little shocked. Hey, I have some inside knowledge for you, audience out there. I sound like pillow talk. Hey, audience. We're going to talk about the Howard and DiGennaro Reed article right now. I love that. You guys don't listen to Pillow Talk, do you?
No.
I know Delilah.
It's like Delilah.
Yeah.
It's like Delilah, but it's a man.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, he's the man version of Delilah.
Pillow Talk?
It's called Pillow Talk.
Ew.
Yeah.
No.
It's awesome. But anyway, there has been some research showing there's a clear positive relation between problem behavior and giving dogs up to shelters.
Mm-hmm.
And when dogs are seen as less adoptable, if they don't know how to sit, stay, if they're not potty trained, if they're not good on a leash, this is what people will ask. They usually stay at the shelter for longer periods of time, which places considerable burdens on nonprofit shelters, which is why a lot of dogs may be euthanized.
Mm-hmm. But, you said every dog ends up there for a reason, but not every dog at a shelter is poorly behaved.
Oh, no, not at all.
It could be their owner died and they're a senior dog.
Old.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they really say that the general consensus in 1995 was that over half of the dogs that enter shelters will be euthanized, unfortunately.
That's awful.
Which is pretty sad. And even if they do get adopted, 68% of new owners report problem behavior, which accounts for nearly 90% of failed adoptions, meaning they bring the dog back to the shelter. And that's not surprising. I mean, you think you're getting this cute little puppy, right? And then it eats your dry roll.
Right. You could get Stitch.
Yeah.
From Lilo and Stitch. They adopted him from a shelter.
Yeah.
He was talk, though.
He turned out to be an alien.
So that could happen to you, everyone. So really what they're thinking of is that if we could address this dog problem behavior before adoption, we may reduce people bringing the dog back to the shelter because of unsuccessful adoption and potentially prevent behavior-related euthanasia, which would be nice. So they said enrichment programs may be one way that they could cure problem behavior with dogs, and so that would be including toys and music, more socialization, simple obedience training. All of this costs a lot of money, right? And we know that dog training and dog shelters are not the place where you go to find a lot of money. It's
right.
Yeah, it's not they have all the money in the world. And most of the time in shelters,
we can't get enough mental health work for young children in America. So guess what, dogs? You're kind of down the list.
Right? Yeah. So they're not. It's not.
No offense, dogs. I'd love to fund you all. There's none of this is happening.
Yeah. So and most of the time, the people that are working at the shelters are volunteers, so they're not getting paid at all. And so they have found that when you do these enrichment programs, dogs see there's a reduction in stress-related hormones, improvements in immune function, improved scores on behavior assessment, and increased likelihood of adoption from shelter. And if your dog knows how to do the simple things like sit, stay, and wait, people are more likely to adopt that dog, right? Because then
is there a difference between stay and wait?
Yes.
Okay.
So stay is just stay where you are until I tell you. Wait is if there's a treat available and they can go to something.
Okay.
You wait, you tell them to wait, and then they go for it.
Which turns out it's pretty tricky.
It is very tricky.
Yeah.
I don't think I would do it. Jackie, there's a desirable treat over there.
A desirable treat? I love those.
I'm like, what? I'm never waiting. But yeah, what they wanted to figure out in this study is what they can do to, number one, they had 4 goals. So the first goal was to figure out whether they could teach volunteers how to teach dogs obedience with 2 skills, sitting and waiting. And they wanted to see how, across a variety of, least to most restrictive training procedures would work. The second goal was to evaluate the effects of the skills training on the dog's behavior. So they were looking at dog compliance, which I love. And I'm just putting this little tidbit in, that a prompted response was not compliant. I love that.
That's right.
It's not considered compliant.
Independent responding.
It had to be independent. So the third goal was to assess the degree of generalization of volunteer performance in dog compliance to an untrained scale and to novel training partners. So that an untrained skill initially was the wait response, and the novel training partners was the trainers received a novel dog, and the trained dogs received a novel person, emitting those responses. The fourth was to measure consumer desirability of the dog before and after training. And so they did a really cool thing looking at that. So they had undergraduate students,
Did they I don't remember if it was
they did
purpose,
a correlation.
but they also did the correlation between does the better training result in better trained dogs as well.
Yeah, that was the goal, the second goal. So that's how they addressed that second goal. Yeah, but I thought that was cool.
I appreciated that because
I did too.
It's one of those things you could take for granted of like, well, if we could just teach people to train the dogs better, the dogs would be better trained. It's like, well, that might not be true. You could teach the people how to train dogs really well, and the dogs are still terribly behaved.
Sometimes you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
That is true. Maybe because their legs don't work anymore. It's possible.
Well, then they're staying and waiting.
Yeah, right? They're doing a great job staying and waiting. So they had 3 graduate students between 19 and 20 years old. They were getting extra credit, but it was commensurate with the amount of time that they spent with the dogs, not whether the dogs actually engaged in the skill or not.
Sure. It came out to some really tiny amount of
it was like
credit per time.
It was like a lot. They spent a lot of time for very little credit. And the shelter dogs were selected to participate based on these characteristics. So included black fur coat, which has suggested in the past that people are less likely to adopt an animal that has a black fur coat because of superstitious behavior or that they're aggressive or bad.
I was wondering, was it
that is actually true?
Was it because they shed and it's very noticeable?
Nope. It's they've looked at research before this, and it's really this like preconceived notion that black dogs and black cats are bad luck and or more aggressive. Isn't that?
I can see that, like the aggressive for the dog.
Yeah. And then the black cat
and the bad luck for the cat
is associated with like witches, and like you can't let a black cat cross your path.
Right.
Which
I think no matter what you're wearing, the dog fur will show up.
Yeah.
Whether it's white or black.
It's true.
I was thinking black would show up.
It always shows up.
Worse, maybe.
So I have black dogs. I have 2 black dogs, and I actually prefer the black dog fur because I wear mostly black. Because I'm gothy.
Yeah, you sure are.
I'm very gothy. And so when I have a white dog fur, you can actually see the white dog fur more.
Okay.
But that's not why. It's because people think that they're bad, more aggressive. That they were older than...
discriminatory.
It is. It is very discriminatory. That's why I have both black dogs. Trying to beat it. They have to be older than a year of age. They have to have a history of limited socialization. So if they were out of the shelter, they couldn't be like... They weren't living in a house. They were living outside. And they had to have non-aggressive problem behavior. They weren't like the dangerous dogs. They were... If they were left unattended... then they may like chew stuff up or cry or whine or, those types of things. And those are the types of things that people would bring their dog back for if they didn't have good skills or if they like ran away. All those dogs were kept in a different place away from other dogs. They were placed in kennels, not in the main room, so they didn't interact with other...
Just for the study.
Just for the studies, yeah. So they weren't interacting with other volunteers that could have potentially started training them the skills that they were working on. Additional inclusion criteria included a lack of instructional control. So the trainers had to come in and say, sit, and the dogs shouldn't have sat.
Well, that makes sense.
Right? And they did not.
Right. You can't baseline out of the study before you've been in the study.
Yeah. So the dogs did not respond to probe instructions, suggesting that these behaviors were not under instructional control. So the dog trainers were assigned to dyads. Trainer A was with dog A, and dog A was a 1-year-old black male Labrador retriever. And dog A was surrendered to the shelter by her owners, who moved and said that they didn't have time for them, which is sad.
That's sad.
And dog A had a history of living outdoors and had level training. Dog B was dog A's brother, so had a similar environment. So,
Okay. Yep.
And then dog C was an unaltered female black Labrador Retriever who was 1.5 years of age. So she was previously adopted from the present Humane Society, but was returned due to destructive in-home behavior. Oh, so that's sad.
She ate all the drywall out of the bathroom.
Yeah, so she ate all the drywall out of the bathroom. So the training sessions were in a storage area. The first time I read that, I thought it said storage shed, and I was like, huh.
Weird.
I was imagining one of those boxes that they ship things overseas
Like a pod?
in.
Me
like,
too.
That seems very small.
Me too, but I don't think that's it. But
Kind of like the garage.
it was probably like the
Yeah.
garage or like just a different room.
Yeah.
But it's funny that both of us thought that. They were like, oh.
Their GoPro's not going to pick up anything by candlelight or whatever, you know.
Right?
Your boxcar children
Yeah.
scenario is.
That's pretty funny. So they conducted procedural integrity on the 9-step discrete trial obedience training procedure. And this was adopted from previous literature, Catania and all in 2009. And they had the dog the trainer wait for the dog ready behavior, arrange antecedents for instruction, deliver scripted verbal instructions, deliver instruction once with clear articulation, pair verbal instruction with the discriminative hand cue or prompt, sit when you put your hand down, wait, put your hand out is usually what it is. Deliver an edible reward contingent on target behavior, or conduct increasingly intrusive correction trials using gestural then physical prompting for an incorrect response, correctly deliver differential reinforcement, and then record your data following each trial, and then provide a 5-second intertrial interval between trials. So that is what the experimenters were collecting data on for the trainers. Obviously, they were collecting data also on dog compliance. So whether the dog engaged in the response that they were looking for when the trainer gave that response. Prompts were not included as independent. So they also conducted a correlational analysis, which was Rob was talking about earlier, to determine the degree to which trainer integrity was associated with dog training effectiveness. They used a Spearman's Ranked Order Coefficient, or ROW. I love that. And they also did a treatment acceptability and social validity assessment, because guys, I love that. So when I read this, I was like, wow. And this was a really good one. So they asked 13 questions to respondents, and the respondents were shelter staff, potential adopters, and animal trainers from like across the country.
Because they didn't
have any. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So that's cool. So they found them in Kansas, Missouri, and Nebraska. And they had all sorts of different, like the appropriate training certificates. So they asked them if they thought this was an appropriate procedure and looked at the acceptability of the dog before and after.
They asked hundreds of people, and only 30-something% got back to them.
Yeah, but they asked a lot of people, which I love.
Probably because they knew they'd only get about 30%
right,
back.
yeah.
Yeah. So they used a concurrent multiple baseline design across 3 trainer dog dyads to look at the different types of training procedures on procedural integrity and dog compliance. So they first looked at baseline, and in baseline they just said, do your best, train the dog to sit. And that's all. And what they found was that no one really did it. So that's okay. Dogs didn't sit, trainers didn't train. Hey. Yeah, it was a true baseline. I think one person got one dog got 10% correct, one dog got 1% correct, and one dog got 0% correct. And then they gave them written instructions and told them to read the written instructions. They were detailed written instructions prior to the start of the session, and they could ask questions, and they saw little improvement with the written instructions alone. And then they added a video modeling component.
Nice. Where
they provided a video model of the written instructions and examples and non-examples.
This is a video of the sheet of instructions.
Right? And it's like zooming in and out. Wouldn't that be funny with like slow, like Sarah McLachlan music coming in the background, right? Here it is. I think somebody was reading it.
Gotcha. That makes more sense.
Yeah, I think somebody was reading it, and then they provided examples and non-examples of what each of the steps would look like. It's important to note here that they only required the volunteers to watch the video one time at the start of the condition. So this is something that I'm going to come back to, guys.
Okay.
Because, again, the video modeling condition slightly increased levels across all dogs and all trainers, but not to their criteria level. So then they implemented feedback and modeling for sit. And once they added the feedback and modeling where the trainer, the first author, and the graduate students trained the trainer participants. The first author trained the trainer participants and provided feedback and modeling for the steps that they were getting incorrect. That increased to criteria for all 3 trainers and subsequently increased dog compliance, which is cool. And then they did, because they noticed that there was no generalization for the weight response for trainers or dogs, they then implemented feedback and modeling for weight and then saw an increase in responding for the weight response for 2 of the 3 dogs. And then finally they did a novel stimulus assessment where the trainers received a novel dog and were instructed to teach that novel dog to sit and wait. Novel dog
is just such a
funny
phrase.
Yeah. And then the dogs...
What's this dog doing here? What?
Oh, I must train him.
This is new. I've never seen this dog before.
Novel
dog.
Yeah, I like that. And then they were asked to train the novel dog, and then the regular dog. Sorry.
Whenever I see a dog, I train it, even if I've never met it before.
And then with the dogs, the trained dogs, they were asked to engage in the skill with novel people, and they could, which is awesome. So that's what we found with this study.
It is awesome.
Yeah. So we found that, unfortunately, we can teach volunteers. So that's the first goal, right? Can we teach volunteers to implement?
That's not the unfortunate part. That's the good part.
That's the good part. Can we teach volunteers to teach dogs simple obedience training? And the answer is yes.
They're very certain about that, and they kind of make that snide remark. It's not you get what you pay for as... I forget they cite it, that you get what you pay for with the volunteers, that no, you can get good results from people who work for free.
Yeah, it was cited by Pierce, 1993, and Wharton, 1991.
Did they coin that term? That sounded like an old term. I thought it was like
you get what you pay for.
It was in quotes.
Term or something.
Unpaid staff may be able to implement procedures with integrity when given training and support. However, one of the other goals is they were trying to make it cost efficient, right? So some of these places don't have a lot of money. And one of the things that they were looking to do is to see whether the video model may supplement or then, what's the word I'm looking for? Take over.
Replace?
Replace, guys. Yay. Replace.
Maybe supplant?
Yeah.
What you're looking for?
Probably. Who knows? That's actually a really big word, so probably not. But replace is the word I was looking for. Replace that individualized instruction, because that could take time and money. And a lot of volunteer shelters don't have time and money, nor do they have someone trained to do that. So that was one of the unfortunate pieces. But they also showed that when you increase procedural integrity, you also increase acquisition of skills. So when people were engaging in the correct procedures, dogs were learning things.
But there was they even mention it. Couldn't they do more, in service or out of service, put videos up on YouTube? Because they only let the participants watch the video the one time.
Right.
They got pretty good results. I would have thought they would have said, well, let's see if we just let them watch the video more. And if the goal had just been sort of, we just need to see if this works, and it clearly didn't work, but the goal was to find something that was effective and efficient and cheap. So wouldn't you want to hey, how many times, if they come and they watch this video 10 times, if they got, 80%, most places are going to say, you know what, that's good enough for us. Let's say 80% for our unpaid volunteers, and all they got to do is watch a video on YouTube before they come in, and, we'll be better off than we were when it was... we got to get the trainer in and have them give feedback, and we can do that once a quarter, maybe.
Yeah, I agree with you, Rob, because they do note that it took 15 hours to make the video. Seems like a long time to make a video.
In that video that it
right?
took that long?
15 hours to make the video.
I guess our Interteach video took some 8 hours with editing, and that was about
1 minute.
1 minute long, 3 minutes long, I think.
Yeah, so it did take
that was really high quality.
Stunts.
Yeah, it had
fancy
music
editing.
and stunts, editing.
I assumed this would just be like, hi, everybody, let me show you what to do. First, this,
Sit,
this.
stay.
Now, watch it happen with this dog, with this dog, with this person and this dog, with this person and this dog, in a dark container, in a lighted room.
Hello, Fox and Socks. Hello, Dr. Seuss. Yeah, so I think that they should have given the video a little more of a little more chance.
Agreed.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it's like we don't give our kids like one chance to watch a video, and it's like that Eminem song, like you have one chance.
You only get one shot.
Yeah, that song.
I'm not gonna waste my shot.
That's okay.
Because otherwise it's sort
Right?
of like, and then we found that what research for years has told us, that if you just kind of let people read something, they don't learn it. And if you let them see it one time, they don't learn it. But if you give them extensive feedback and in training, they'll always learn it. Okay, we knew that. That wasn't, that's not the finding. The finding is we don't want to know, can we train people to do this? Because we know from our research, the answer is probably we can. It's, can we do it really cheaply and easily?
Mm-hmm. So I think that's one limitation of this study, but you know,
they threw the whole book at it. They just should have made the shoestring a little longer.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
I think you could maybe do it on a shoestring.
Yeah,
you just don't know yet how long the shoestring needs to be. Right.
But so they did I do appreciate they did the other work to answer questions that we could have taken for granted.
Right.
Like, well, does it really, I assume that if you're better at training, that the dogs will do better. I assume if the dogs can do a couple tricks, people will want to adopt them more. I assume that people will know the difference between trained and untrained dogs. So I really liked how they took the time to do their semi-Likert scale and the questionnaire and get all that feedback and really demonstrate that, yes, these are important skills in the midst of all the other work they were doing. So that was...
Yeah, and their third goal was looking at generalization across training partners and skills, and they did see they saw generalization across trainers and dogs during the novel stimulus assessment, which was really great, right? Because that's what you want to see, because if you train a dog to sit, you want them to sit when somebody adopts them. Yeah. Right? But they didn't see generalization across training procedures, so you didn't see generalization between the sit procedure and the wait procedure. So
that would make sense though, because they're different cues. You're looking, and I think they even mentioned the problem was that everyone didn't wait long enough for the dog. Yep. Like they didn't wait the full 3 seconds, so the trainers just kept screwing it up, and then the dogs couldn't demonstrate the skill. Yeah, so I think that might be something that they could look at in the future. And then their final goal was to show that socially significant changes in dog behavior was acceptable to consumers, and everyone said that the dogs that displayed instructional compliance were identified as better and more adoptable than the same dog that displayed jumping and instructional non-compliance. So I just think that's really neat, that if we include just simple obedience training as part of an enrichment program, we can increase instructional control, we may be able to improve the dog's quality of life, and increase its adoptability, and decrease whatever it's called when they go back to the shelter. Relinquished adoption. Yeah.
It's not exactly recidivism.
No.
I don't know what it's called.
That'd be like the dogs were sitting and then they stopped sitting the second they were out of the shelter.
Right. So it's just interesting. I think this was a fun one to read.
It was really good. It was a really good article.
It's a problem that I
thought the end was
going to
be that the volunteers adopted the dogs.
I thought so too, and then they didn't, and I was like, why didn't you?
Because it is a research study and not literature.
Probably because they were college students and they couldn't have them in their dorms.
But I wonder if they named them.
I wonder
if they named them like secret names, like pet names. I hope so.
They probably had real names that weren't Dog A and Dog B.
No, I mean like they had their own like I call my favorite dog Bubba.
Oh.
Like that kind of thing.
Could be.
But anyway.
We don't know. We don't know what happened outside.
We don't.
Study. We'll never know.
Well, before we move on to our next article, I just want to let you listeners out there know, if you are new to the show, that ABA Inside Track is ACE approved. That means by listening to our show, you can earn continuing education credits. All you need to do is go to the website and apply for continuing education credits. That's at abainsidetrack.com. We also have a link in our show notes. And you'll need a couple pieces of information that you should already know, but the most important that you'll only know by listening to the podcast is one of two secret code words. We're going to give you one now, and we're going to give you one a little bit later. When will it come? I don't know. Our first secret code word for the night is Barker. BARKER. K-E-R. It's a bit on the nose, but I'm thinking of like the game show host Bob Barker, and it also sounds like what a dog might be.
Oh, I
barks
love
a lot.
Bob Barker.
Spay and neuter your pets.
The price is wrong, bitch. Remember that?
Yes.
I don't.
This is from Happy Gilmore.
Oh, okay. I was like, I don't think he ever said that.
No, it was in. They were doing.
He did in Happy Gilmore.
They were doing like
I
one of those celebrity classics, and Happy Gilmore was mad at Bob Barker because he wasn't doing a good job, and then Bob Barker was mad at him because he wasn't getting.
Remember now.
Okay.
But I was thinking Price is Right. Like that would have never happened.
No, he never would say that. He was a class act, I think, or else he was. I don't know. Are there
we
Bob
don't
Barker
know.
allegations?
He probably should
He's
not.
dead now.
Doesn't mean there couldn't be Bob Barker allegations. So let's hope not.
Let's
move on. Barker. All right. Before we move on to our second article, why don't we take a little break? Diana can get a little air, because she looks like she's about to fade in our tiny shipping box where we do all our training and recording.
So hot.
So hot. We'll be right back.
Hey, ABA Inside Trackers. It's me, Jackie.
And it's me, Diana. Jackie, I'm really excited to be joining you in this commercial because I've also started my career path at Regis.
Yay! Yes, that's right, folks. If you want to start an exciting career in applied behavior analysis, you should check out the Master's and Certificate program in Applied Behavior Analysis at Regis College. You can learn from both Diana and me. Here are some interesting facts about our program.
90% of our 2016 graduates passed the BCBA exam during their first time taking the exam. We think this is a really great testament to the program.
We started an on-campus autism center in fall 2017. The center provides behavior analytic services to children diagnosed with an autism spectrum disorder right at Regis College. The center will offer employment opportunities for some of our graduate students. Students working at the center will receive partial tuition remission.
We also offer opportunities for paid clinical placements and graduate assistantships starting in the student's first year. So all of our grad students are currently working in the field, either part-time or full-time.
Yes, we help students identify their practicum placements because we think it's imperative students receive excellent training and experience in the application of behavior analysis. Therefore, we screen placements to ensure students receive high-quality practicum placements.
We are approved by the BACB to provide intensive practicum. Students complete at least 750 hours, but most complete much more over the course of 3 semesters. Across that time, students complete a professional portfolio that includes completing a variety of application exercises, such as conducting assessments, developing behavior plans, training curriculum, and more. This portfolio functions as a way to ensure students are learning the essentials of being an effective behavior analyst and is a great way to showcase your work at job interviews upon graduation. I love it.
Students enroll in 2 courses per semester and graduate in a little under 2 years. Our courses are offered in traditional classroom and hybrid formats, which enables a student to focus on one course at a time while still completing the program quickly.
All of the faculty are PhD-level BCBAs with strong applied and research backgrounds in ABA, and all have published papers in respected peer-reviewed journals.
We ensure small class sizes so that all students receive personalized attention from their professors, and advisors are easily accessible to meet with students.
There is also an invited lecture series at Regis, which involves inviting outside experts in ABA to speak on specialized topics relating to practicing ABA, and these are really great opportunities for students to learn from a variety of experts in the field in addition to their professors.
And last summer, we completed an international service trip to Iceland, which we plan to do every other year.
Although we train students to work effectively with individuals diagnosed with autism, we also have opportunities for students to work with individuals with a variety of diagnoses and typically developing individuals as well. In addition, the coursework covers the broad applications of ABA with respect to solving socially important problems.
There are opportunities for students to be involved in faculty research as well.
We have a great location. We're just 12 miles from the center of Boston.
So check us out at www.regiscollege.edu.
See you there.
Keep responding.
And we're back from our little break. We've had a little time to air out the studio, and now we are ready to get into our article on functional, well, not our article, but somebody else's article that we'll talk about. Functional analysis of human-dog interactions.
Yes, I'm going to talk about that. But
Dinah, are you there?
I'm here. And I know everyone's probably really excited to talk about this article and the idea of the application of functional analysis to dogs. But I just want to point out that the title is Functional Analysis Methods and not straight up functional analysis, because what they did was a little bit different.
Dinah was pissed about this all day. She's so mad.
I'm not pissed.
She sold a bill of goods, she said.
No.
That's hilarious.
Oh, payday. No, this is a really cool study, and they did some cool stuff, but just so everyone is like prepped and ready, we're not going to get some straight up FA results. Okay? Are you okay with that, Rob?
Turn your podcasts off now, everybody.
I guess I'm okay.
Switch it off.
I guess I'm okay with it. But
Okay.
I want to move into this because I think this is fascinating.
I do too.
I love it when they take methodologies and span it across species.
It's cross-speciesal. This article is by
Some special
Feuerbacher.
research.
And it's Feuerbacher and Wynne. I think I'm saying that correctly, but it could be Feuerbacher for all we know. So this article is titled The Application of Functional Analysis Methods to Assess Human-Dog Interactions. And this is an interesting study because it's a little bit of application piece, right? It's like both translational and application, but we're not looking specifically at a social problem per se with this study. Like, we don't have dogs here who ripped down the wallpaper or are relieving themselves on your carpet or are barking incessantly. We have perfectly well-behaved dogs who they trained to emit a particular response as an analog to problem behavior.
Yeah, which we sometimes do when we're doing functional analyses if the
Absolutely.
behavior is too severe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We do. So it's a interesting way to look at it. But the dogs in this study weren't doing anything wrong. Instead, they were using this to sort of tease out, what pieces of the functional analysis methodology could we use to examine how we might manipulate EOs for doggies.
You guys read this and felt like these are the author's dogs, right?
Well, what I do love is that they were like, all of these dogs lived in the same house, but we're not the same owners. So it's
Right.
like, hey, roommates.
Yep.
So maybe
Can we use your dogs in the study?
Feuerbacher and Wynne live together. But they they went to different places, so they couldn't have lived
It
together.
might have been the first author's roomies.
Yeah. We thank the owners for allowing us to work with their dogs and donating their time. So I don't think it was hers.
Oh, because I was reading this, I was like, oh,
They
this is
can't be
adorable.
her dogs. No, they can't.
They can't be
do
her dogs.
research.
I know.
Oh.
You can't. But there has been research when a scientist looked at her young infant, and it was a case study. It was in the 70s, though, but this is more recent.
Yeah,
I
you're not supposed to.
I kind of like the narrative or like the meta narrative of, man, we're bored this summer. You want to like look
Yeah,
at
right.
functional analysis methodology with our dogs, and then like, wow, we got some good results. We should publish
Cool.
this.
You're right. Maybe.
I like that story. That's my headcanon about this article.
Yes. Before we put this episode up, Rob, we should make sure that we link. There is a little FA demonstration on YouTube where they use a dog's tail wagging behavior to demonstrate the different FA conditions, and it's really cute.
It's
So-
like so cute.
It's really
Just
cute.
send me the link and then put it on the page.
Yeah.
Maybe I will.
Is that the one I gave you?
Yeah.
Oh my god, I love that
This
one.
podcast gold, guys. Let's keep it up. You know?
Okay. There were 3 dogs in this study. Their names were Raleigh. He was 2.5-year-old male American bulldog. Just let that sink in for a minute about how cute he is. The next one is Ninja. She was a 3-year-old female Rottweiler mix. And the last one is Aegis. I think that's how you say it.
Mm-hmm.
She was a 3-year-old female Belgian Malinois.
Malinois.
I'm not sure what she looked like. And I couldn't understand when Rob was telling me about the study before I read it what I thought you were saying. She was ageist, like an ageist dog. Like she didn't like
Oh, she hated old people.
old people. Oh, it's pretty. She looks like a German Shepherd.
Yeah. Jackie, Diana and I argued about this. Do you really have to use fake participant names for your dog participants?
Yes.
How am I going to find Ninja the dog?
You don't know, but you
Doesn't
still
matter.
Need to be confidential.
That seems silly. I'm sorry. That seems very silly to me. This is very bizarre because they're made up names. It's not like that's the dog's real name.
Yeah,
It
isn't.
It's a dog.
These are not the dog's real names. These are pseudonyms.
Then why did they make up different pseudonyms? I don't know. I just feel like if I had to make up pseudonym names for my dogs, I'd just give them like human names or totally ridiculous names.
No, you wouldn't.
Why not?
I don't know. Because so Aegis is Aegis.
Like, why is that the fake name?
I don't know. There's a whole conversation
Might as well
to
call
be
them
had
Spot, Rex,
regarding
and Fido.
how you choose pseudonyms. When the pseudonym itself is distracting from the study, then you probably should have picked a simpler pseudonym. Is usually my thought.
It just seemed odd to me that the dogs had to protect their identities because they tell me the breed.
It's their data.
It's the dog's data.
It's the dog's data.
Yeah, I think you.
You have to be protective.
Do we have to be?
Yes, we do.
Do they have HIPAA guidelines for dogs?
Yes.
And FERPA?
They don't have FERPA because that's for students, but they
It's
do have
FERPA.
it
It's
for...
FURPA.
But they could go to a dog school, Jackie.
FERPA.
That's true. No, but there is a protection. If they had to do this, they had to go through an IACUC, so an institutional review board for the protection of animals. Yeah.
Of all the problems that animals have, I feel like knowing their true identities just seems down the list. But anyway, I digress. It just seemed very odd to me.
Okay. Like I was saying, they didn't have any problem behavior per se. So what they did instead was teach them an alternative response that sort of stood in the place of a potential problem. And for two of the dogs, Raleigh and Aegis, they taught those dogs to tap a button that lit up that was on the floor. I think it's like one of those buttons you hang in your closet that's like battery operated.
Yep, the light ones, yeah.
And it lights up when you press it. So they taught them to either press that with their foot or with their nose through a shaping procedure. And Ninja already had a response within her repertoire that they felt would be appropriate for this, which was pawing at the backstop of the door. So they used that as her
Like
response.
those bouncy ones, you think? Like on springs,
Probably.
like,
That would make sense.
That's what I was imagining.
Yes. So they established these, discrete responses for the dogs, and then they did not apply different consequences to that response, but rather they manipulated the antecedent conditions to determine how often the dog engaged in the response in order to access a static reinforcer across conditions. So that's where it gets funky and a little bit different than a typical FA. So the reinforcer that was used across the sessions was 1 minute access to the owner, who was sitting in a different room on the couch.
I want to be that owner. It's like, cool, man. I get to get paid to sit on the couch.
Yeah,
Or
right?
like, I'm doing...
Like, I was just going to be here anyway, so you do whatever you want with my dog.
Some conditions they had to move between the rooms,
Ugh,
though.
God.
To get up.
One of the rooms of the house was set up like the FA room, you could say. There was a video camera in there. The dog was placed in the room. Initially, they did a shaping procedure in order to establish the response, but then once that was established, then once the dog initiated the response, then the door was opened. They could leave the room for 1 minute. The owner was available on the couch to provide hugs, tickles, and speak to them in a high-pitched voice and say, "What a good puppy you are." And if the dog left the couch, the owner did not follow them around the room, but they were available for the 1 minute. And then at the end of the 1 minute, the owner brought them back into the room, closed the door, and then they could emit the response again. So the length of the session was 15 minutes. It was a total potential of 15 responses if they engaged in the response immediately upon re-entry into the room. And in baseline, that is exactly what happened, right? They either hit the light or hit the doorstop, and they could leave the room for 1 minute and engage. So that was the purported reinforcer, was both escape from the room and owner attention and snuggles.
Because they had shown in previous literature that dogs would prefer petting over food from a stranger than petting to an owner.
Yeah.
Yeah, they want that more.
Dogs love owners.
They're social creatures.
I'm going to start a whole series of escape rooms for dogs. I bet it's going to go to the way of like those pet hotels. It's going to be huge. No more podcasting, no more behavior analysis. Just, oh, your dog hit the button. I guess he escaped. To you. Pay me $100.
I love that. I would take my dogs.
I did it in a shipping container, which is where I do all my work.
One of my dogs would probably do it. The other one would be like, I'm going to sit down.
That's right. And they would have gotten different results in this study based on your 2 dogs.
That's true.
Okay, so the baseline condition, there was nothing in the room. It was an empty room with a button on the floor. And they measured how many times did they escape the room to their owner, right?
So that was like your escape thing. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are 4 other conditions of the study as well. And so remember, we're not manipulating the consequence. It's the same every time. You get to go out to your owner and have snuggles. But what they really wanted to determine was if we had a dog, not these dogs who are great, we had another dog,
bad dog
that, let's say, did some other type of thing you didn't want them to do, like poop on the floor in order to access their owner. Are there environmental arrangements that we could do that could potentially decrease the likelihood of that response occurring even when the reinforcer remains in place, right? So this is a non-extinction.
Would one of the conditions serve as an abolishing operation
Exactly.
for whatever pooping floor behavior?
Or accessing the reinforcer.
Yes.
Of the owner. Yeah. They had a lone condition that we just described, which was the same as baseline. So the second condition was owner attention. In this condition, the owner was in the room with the dog, and they came in and they gave the dog continuous attention the whole time, the whole 15 minutes. If the dog happened to hit the button, they got to leave the room and go be alone in the living room.
I love that. That would be one of my dogs.
No, they weren't alone in the living room.
Me.
Didn't the owner have to go back to the living room and back to the couch?
I don't believe so.
Because it'd be the same reinforcer.
No, so it says, if the dog made a response, the owner opened the door, ushered the dog out, and closed the door so that the dog had access to the house, but the owner remained in the experimental room.
Oh, okay. So, yes, so I did that.
They did change. So they did change the
You're
reinforcer
right. The reinforcer is different. So in that condition, the reinforcer would be escape
just being out of the room.
My owner.
Which I love too. And they said, and after 1 minute, the owner opened the door and walked out to bring the dog back if it was not already returning on its own when the door opened.
Like, wait a minute. Where'd my owner go? Okay, so I've been misspeaking this whole time. The reinforcer is not the same per each condition.
I thought it was the same in the other ones. That one just seems so similar.
I am so embarrassed.
Somebody errata.
Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead. Do it.
You just errated yourself.
The next condition was the owner was present in the room, but did not interact with the dog. And they came in and said, I'm going to do some work now. Be a good dog.
I love that. That must have been so fun to do. Like, as the experimenter, right? Be like, be a good dog, Fido.
I've got some stuff I got to do.
And I believe in this case, they also escaped to an empty room.
Yep.
The next condition was bed. In this condition, it was, again, just the dog in the room, but now they had a bed, and they could lay in the bed if they wanted to. If they engaged in the response, they accessed the owner plus attention in the living room. And then the last condition was toys. And in this condition, several wonderful toys were available in the room with the dog.
Equidistant from the button.
They were equidistant from the button, and it was approximately 0.25 meters between toys.
It's like a circle of toys.
Wait, guys.
Circle of toys.
The dog was also deprived of these toys for 1 day prior to this session.
These were very special toys. And
do dogs usually have that many toys that you can just sort of...
Yes. Yeah. It's like a child.
Wow.
Our dogs have like a dog bin, and it's just overflowing with nasty dog toys.
Man.
Delicious. And I would also like to point out that throughout this study, they call either the door stopper or the light button on the floor the manipulandum.
The manipulandum, because there's only one of them.
Correct. It was not manipulanda. It was a manipulandum. And the toys were placed equidistant around the manipulandum.
This is a snooty article.
It's not really. I just said it that way to be funny, but the reinforcer here was escape to adult attention. Owner attention.
Right. They really covered all their bases, though, because they did procedural integrity.
They sure did.
I love that.
They sure did. I know. In a 4-page study, they fit in procedural integrity,
very thoughtful.
Which I love.
99% of intervals were correct.
That's of their boyfriend or girlfriend's dog.
Yeah, right?
We think maybe.
We don't know that.
That's the story I'm writing. They also live in a very beautiful house. I imagine the experimental room was kind of like a laundry mud room.
Oh, I was thinking as an office.
I thought this was an apartment.
Oh,
they had a great house in my
I still
imagination.
think I
when
still
read
think
this
it's an
article.
apartment. I still think it's an office. I think it's an office and
think
an
it's an
apartment.
office,
But the
too.
dog's not in there a lot because they need to do work there. So that's where they do work.
Nope,
Right.
it's a mud room. You can go outside. It's a
Ooh.
beautiful summer day. It's near the beach, and then you go to the living
I don't
room.
think
It's
so.
kind of this old Cape style. I don't know why I had that a very vivid imagination while reading this article. Sorry, I just wanted to
They
add
were
that.
in
'cause
Florida, I think.
Oh,
so.
that would be swampy looking.
Okay. So, results. Baseline for all dogs was moderate to high and fairly stable levels of responding in order to access owner attention in the living room. During the FA, we had those 5 different conditions, remember? So for all dogs, the lowest 2 conditions in which responding occurred at pretty much low or moderate to low levels were the 2 conditions in which the owner was present in the room. Owner presence reduced responding pretty significantly, and owner attention reduced responding to almost 0 for all participants.
Except for, what'd you say his name's? Aegis?
Aegis.
Towards the end, he was like, get me out of here.
Yes, there was a slight increase for him or her at the end.
Stop paying attention to me.
For all dogs, responding was highest in the alone condition, which makes sense because it was a replicant of baseline. Replicant?
That would be the robot murderers from Blade Runner.
Spoiler alert.
That they tell you that in the crawl at the beginning of Blade Runner. For those of you who fell asleep watching Blade Runner,
30
which is
years ago.
everybody.
30, 40 years ago?
The original one. Yeah.
I don't know what word I want to use. Oh, replica. It was a replica baseline. So alone condition was understandably high responding. And then after that, it was a little bit mixed. So the remaining 2 conditions were bed and toys. Toys, responding was pretty much in the middle for all 3 participants. So toys was moderately effective at reducing this AO, is sort of the take-home point there. So if you need to put something out for your doggy, toys is a good place to start, but it's not likely to reduce whatever aberrant responding to 0.
Mm-hmm.
If you have this type of scenario. And then the bed either worked really well. So for Raleigh, it worked almost not at all. It did not work.
He's a night owl.
He did not want to lay down in that bed. However, for Ninja, with the bed present, her responding was the second lowest of all of her conditions. So she liked laying in the bed and it did decrease her responding. And then Aegis, once that bed was there, do you know how often she hit the light button? Hit the manipulandum to leave the room? 0. She was like, thank goodness I can take a nap. Good night, everybody.
I love that about her.
I love that about her, too. Especially now that I know what she looks like. She's a big German Shepherd dog. She's like, peace out. Okay? So this was a interesting study, and I think that the way that they set it up is really useful for someone who does need to make an application to this to their dog who's having problem behavior, because they give you the framework in which you could potentially look at how would you address something like this? How would you potentially determine a function? They did have to, make the leap and say, we think that likely this combination of escape to owner attention, functions as a reinforcer for the dogs. But we saw that responding was high when that did serve as a consequence for all dogs once they eventually made the comparison to owner attention in the room. And we did see a significant differentiation in those levels of responding in those 2 conditions. So I think it's safe to say that this did function as a reinforcer for the dogs. But that would be something that you'd have to determine for your own dog.
I don't think this would work for a new dog. Maybe it would.
Who didn't know their owner.
Right. But it could if like human interaction.
Right.
Right. Just like anyone.
Just any interaction. Yeah. But it was a really nice parallel that could be drawn to addressing aberrant behavior. And toys are good. Every dog should have toys in a bed, but they may or may not work, is what we get from this.
But if you wanted to be as lazy as possible in treating your dog's behavior, get them toys and a bed. Your cheap-ass treatment for your dog's bad behavior, buy them a bed and a bunch of toys, and hope for the best.
And just being in the room with your dog, even if you tell your dog that you need to work, is pretty effective.
That's true.
You don't have to talk to your dog constantly. Not like your kid.
All right, thanks, Diana. So we have some ideas for how you might treat a dog's problem behavior. I'd like to see the follow-up where they actually look at problem behavior
Me too.
with the dog and see. I mean, would that count as an extension? We took
Yeah.
this methodology and we used a problem behavior.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, goodness. We were twinsies right there.
That seems like the easiest thing in the world to get published.
So you'd usually use aggressive dogs, right? So that's the problem behavior. The actual problem behavior might be aggression or might be destruction.
Destruction.
What about
Yeah.
barking? What about like just nonstop barking?
It could be nonstop barking too.
Everyone hates that
I don't
one.
know any dogs that do that.
Nonstop barking? Pretty sure you can name a few.
You would have to find those dogs, and if they weren't your dogs, it's harder to get to do research with dogs if you don't have dogs available to you. I've tried to do this a lot. I've tried to partner with shelters through my job, and my job says no because somebody could get bit and die. If you don't have like an animal institute that's willing to work with you, it's a little hard to get this done.
Can you do it privately? Like find people who are like, my dog's the worst, and I'd say, I'll help you.
Yeah, I could, but I would feel bad if I could not help them.
You probably
right?
couldn't. I could do it. I could do whatever fly-by-night dog
Sure.
sales. I'm trying to do some
Yeah.
research. No idea if it's going to work.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, but also if you're in that situation, they may be trying to get rid of their dogs, so time might be of the essence. Like if you
It didn't take them too long to teach the dog to
No.
do the use the manipulandum, and then it didn't take too long to run all the sessions. I
That's
don't think
true.
they ran like 1 to 4 a day.
Yeah. When we talk about dog training, I always want to give a shout out to Terry Bright, who works at the MSPCA in Boston. I like super fangirl her. We're not friends, but I really want to be.
Yeah, you love her.
I really love her, and I've talked to her a couple times on the phone, and I really like her. So shout out to her. This is what she does, and she's done a lot of great work.
Usually on our show we do Dissemination Station, where we talk about how does this research relate to the general practitioner, but we're not really going to do that because I'm sure that we must have, we definitely have some listeners who do train animals, but I don't think that's the vast majority of people out there. So I don't know if these would necessarily be articles that really generalize or methodology that generalizes as well as a lot of our other topics. It certainly could. And I think, we talked about one way you could do an extension of this recent article with looking at actual challenging behavior of a dog to see, does it actually allow you to develop a treatment for the dog to decrease whatever that challenging behavior is, and sort of looking at some of the video modeling piece. Could we do more of the video modeling to get closer to a success criteria for training employees so that you could use kind of a much cheaper, time-efficient way? So that's, we had 2 thoughts. We kind of discussed that with the articles. But other than that, I don't know directly, since none of us really work with animals regularly, what we could offer to the field. But Diana, you did have some scenarios you thought might kind of serve a similar purpose and allow us to sort of take a critical eye to what did we learn from these articles, and how might what we know about dog research from reading these articles and just behavior analysis in general, we could change animal behavior.
Yeah, I thought that might be kind of fun. I made us a couple little scenarios to talk through.
We'll judge if it's fun when it's over.
It might not be fun. Don't get your hopes up. Or you can.
My hopes are so high. So high right now.
It probably shouldn't be. But, we can take from this what we like. And behavior's behavior, and we all know that. So I don't think we're breaking any barriers by saying, wow, we can use the principles of behavior with an animal population rather than a human population, because that's something that all of us should already recognize as going on. But, I continue to take inspiration from our guest speaker, Mallory, who was on episode 41. She's opened up her own dance studio and applies behavior analysis to dance, right? And
I love that.
So cool,
And
and
she calls
so
it a dance lab.
entrepreneurial of her. And, there are some folks out there who are doing behavioral work with animals, but by and large, not that many people, right? So if anyone's inspired by this to say, gosh, I should go out there and be an animal trainer and open up a little, obedience school for dogs, like by all means, like get the training that you need and the mentorship that you need, but go out there and do it. So I don't know. I guess I thought that is the kind of direction that we could take our dissemination station in. So I wrote a couple little scenarios just for us to get people thinking, get the juices flowing about how dog problems are still going to...
Hashtag dog problems.
Hashtag dog problems are still going to overlap with the behavioral principles that we all know and love. All right, so here's my scenario. Number 1, Trixie is a 2-year-old Cocker Spaniel.
Is that Trixie's real name, Diana? I need
It
to
is
know.
not. She is not a real dog.
Oh.
I made it up. Trixie is a 2-year-old Cocker Spaniel who chews shoes when she is alone. What should we do for Trixie and why?
I mean, could we use the functional analysis methodology in the article you shared to use that the analog of pushing a button with your nose to the chewing of shoes, and you don't even need to train a new response. You just sort of test the different scenarios. Like, I'm going to put some toys equidistant to these shoes, and I'm going to put the bed near your shoes, and I'm going to sit here and do work while my shoes are just sort of hanging around.
Another thing you could do that. Another thing you could do is just put your shoes away. Right? So clean up your damn business.
Yep.
Put your shoes away and provide toys and a warm bed when you are not there. Right? Because it's you not there.
Kind of judgmental there, Jackie. We're here to help.
Well,
this
those are all
hypothetical
really
human.
easy antecedent manipulations
Right.
that we could do.
Yeah.
And then we might also want to find out the function of the shoe chewing? Shoe chewing?
Shoe chewing.
Mm-hmm.
Which might be owner attention, but it could be negative attention or positive attention, or it could just be that she needs some stimulation.
So would you want to try scenarios where the dog starts chewing on your shoes and you go, "No, Trixie, stop that. Don't do it." And then another one where you like, "Trixie, get out of the room," or like, "You can go somewhere else now. You're not stuck in this room anymore."
Yeah, right? You can do an FA.
Mm-hmm.
And the one where you give
You
Trixie
pick some shoes you don't care about.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could do latency to beginning to chew shoes. Try
That's
that
true.
instead.
Sure.
And that would
If
be
you
really
got really
helpful.
fancy shoes.
She starts
and they're
like
the only pair
pull
you
it
know.
by the shoelace, right? She starts to pull it out of the
Mhm.
closet by the shoelace.
You're like, no! Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we could really approach it from both sides there. Good. Good?
Good.
Good.
Great.
Okay. Second scenario. Roy is an 8-year-old husky mix.
No one's ever going to name their dog Roy.
I might.
Okay.
I wanted to name my dog Robot.
Yeah, that makes more sense than Roy, but that's okay.
Do you want me to change it?
No.
It's an imaginary dog.
No, I like Roy.
I do too.
Just kidding, I don't. Just,
Okay.
Just kidding, I do.
He barks at anyone who passes by during his walks.
Okay, I can answer this one.
What do we want to do?
So, I have...
Give him up to a shelter where they have well-trained employees using video modeling techniques.
No, actually, my dog does this, hilariously. My dog barks at all dogs when we go by. It's called leash aggression, and I've gone to 16 weeks of bad dog class. And the...
Wait, was it a class for bad dogs, or the class itself was bad?
Oh, no, the class was great, and it was for bad dogs that have this problem called leash
They
aggression.
probably don't call them bad dogs.
No, they call them RUFF-ians.
Oh, that's right. You told
Sounds
me that.
like my soccer hooligan
Oh,
club.
right. But yeah, so what you can do, one strategy is to prep the dog in advance. So don't have them come in close contact with the dog. Have them stop, like be away from the dog, and have them sit and provide them treats contingent on not barking. And so
Great.
you say, "There's the dog. Good job not barking. There's the dog. Good job not barking." And you train their response when you say, "Where's the dog?" to look in the dog's direction and get treats.
Oh.
So hilarious. And when I'm walking my 2 dogs, this is what happens. I say, as soon as my old good dog sees another dog, he's like, "Where's my treat?" Even though he does nothing, like literally sees a dog and looks at me. He's like, "I know treats are coming." But my bad dog, I have to be like, "Where's the dog?" It's like so annoying, but it works.
I would
Cool.
read my
So-
dog a social story about how it's nice to not bark at other dogs and how it hurts my feelings when they bark at the dogs. And I'd read that to them every day. Maybe I'd pair it with Jackie's, but mine would probably work all by itself. I'm pretty sure. If I remember that episode we did on social stories correctly, it was
Dogs
a long time
love
ago.
social stories. They do.
If you pet them, I bet they love social stories. If
love
you said it
them.
in a high-pitched voice and pet them while you read it.
They love reading books. That's what I know about dogs. That's great. So Jackie, yours is a combination of differential reinforcement
Right.
and then
And-
shaping because you move the
Move them
other
closer.
dog closer.
Yeah, eventually they closer, and eventually you can actually be walking by them and not just sitting alone, like far away in somebody's driveway, which is creepy. But it takes a long, long time.
Yeah.
We're still working on it, but we're getting closer.
Do you think this would work for dogs that look out the front window?
Oh
and do
yeah,
the same
I've also
thing?
done the same thing.
Okay.
So now this also is true. When a dog goes by, she goes, "Ooh," and then runs to me, and I give her a treat. Most of the
Mom,
time.
there was a dog.
Oh my
outside.
god, I want to bark, but I can't. It's funny. Yeah.
Cool. Great. Okay, I have one more scenario.
Okay, I'm ready. Can't wait.
Bojangles is an 11-year-old terrier who growls at and nips the cat when food is being served.
So that's hard because he's old.
Yeah,
He's old and he's probably grouchy.
probably.
My
You recommend putting that dog to sleep then, Jackie? Is that what you're saying?
my first recommendation is separate the dog and cat when you're feeding them.
Mm-hmm.
That makes
You know?
sense. Yeah.
When the dog's eating, just make sure the cat can't get around them. And then when the food's gone, because you should not free feed your 11-year-old dog most of the time.
Except for just a little bowl of ice cream.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
of course.
okay.
Then the cat shouldn't be around.
Yeah,
That's what I'm going to say. Just
probably.
manipulate the environment so it's not likely to occur. I do the same thing with my baby. I don't let her hang out while the dogs are eating. You know?
Fair enough.
I'm not like, hey, why don't you go hang out next to the dog bowl, see what happens.
All right. So another antecedent manipulation for the most part, given Bojangles' age and history of reinforcement.
I suppose it would depend as if Bojangles also, if when the cat was being fed, Bojangles like kept trying to get where the cat was to aggress to the cat. Like he wanted the cat's food, or there was some weird schedule of reinforcement they were under. When the cat got fed, that meant something. I can get more attention if I annoy the cat. If it's some sort of dominance hierarchy,
Right.
that would be the only other situation that
point,
I could imagine looking into. But yeah, an 11-year-old dog, yeah.
But yeah, maybe just separate,
As
just
an
having
adult.
them have separate feeding times.
Yeah, separate feeding times, separate places.
All right. Any other scenarios you guys want to present that I didn't think to cover?
One thing I want to point out is that just because we're behavior analysts, we should not think that we can cure all dog behavior. Just like we've talked about before, if you're going to work with dog behavior, you should know the underlying mechanisms of the dog species, right? So there's going to be different things going on. Then we're like, oh, he just wants attention. Or he's engaging in some, phylogenic behavior.
Right.
Yeah, dogs are dogs.
Dogs are dogs. So if
Humans are humans.
Right. So
and
if you
while
don't,
we're all animals, that does not mean that there aren't
Right.
huge differences between
there are huge differences between them.
our learning history of over
Yeah.
the
So if
thousands of years.
you want to do dog training, I would recommend finding a dog training professional and taking classes. There are really quick 200-hour beginner dog training classes that you can take online through the Karen Pryor Academy, I think that are okay. And so if you wanted to do something like that, you should probably do that. And not just think, oh, I'm a behavior analyst, I can do everything.
Right.
Because you can't.
I bet you can teach a dog to sit.
Oh, yeah, you can definitely teach a dog to sit, but if you're working with, like, an aggressive dog, you're like,
Yeah.
I can work with my dog that's not going to bite a kid's face off.
Some basic single tricks.
Yeah.
Simple situations.
Horror story, I had this old dog walker, and he wanted to be a dog trainer because he loved dogs and didn't do any training, and also didn't think he needed training because he was so, like, natural with dogs, and he had pit bulls. And he slept, he was like, it's like such a weird thing where he was like eating chicken wings in bed once and like fell asleep and like moved in the middle of the night and the dog was like hoarding chicken wings and bit him and then he had to put the dog to sleep. And he's like, I can't believe he bit me. I'm like, yeah, of course he bit you. Cause that's like that's like a prime, like, don't eat with your dog in your bed, right? Like,
right.
especially chicken. Like, my dog would probably bite me too. Just a word to the wise. Yeah. Know what you don't know.
Don't eat in bed.
Don't eat in bed when your dog is sleeping with you, especially chicken wings.
It's about time for our second secret code word. And that second secret code word is Gumby.
Gumby. He's green and he used to be on the TV.
Gumby. Friends with Pokey. He's a horse. That brings us to the end of our show.
If you want to
Seems
find
like
us,
we're done for the day.
We're done. If you want to find
That's
us, you
enough.
can find us on Facebook or Twitter, ABA Inside Track. You can also email us at abainsidetrack@gmail.com. Please rate us. Find us on Google.
No, Apple Podcasts.
Apple Podcasts.
Google doesn't do
Oh.
ratings.
Find us on Apple Podcasts and give us a rating. Tell us if you think we're doing a fine job. You can also find us wherever else your podcasts have been playing.
Fine podcasts are sold.
Yes.
Yeah. So check us out.
Thanks, Jackie. I
You're welcome.
really was blanking on that, so
That's
I
okay.
appreciate your coming in with the plugs there. Thank you guys both for being here. Thank you all so much for listening. And you can come listen to us again next week where we'll have our preview episode. But until then, keep responding. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.